It's coffee. It's comics. It's music. It's Nerds on Coffee.
What's up, everybody? How you guys doing today? How are you doing today? No coffee today.
No coffee.
But kombucha.
But I have a kombucha. My wife is always super on top of getting my favorite kombucha anytime she goes to Whole Foods. It's the Synergy. It's the Trilogy flavor, and it's a GT Dave's kombucha. They're extremely popular. They think they have a little bit more sugar in them, I think, than other kombuchas. And so, like, of the kombucha world, they're not necessarily the healthiest ones you can get. That doesn't mean that they're not healthy. It's just when you're comparing it to something that's just extremely, organic or whatever the other fucking trendy health buzzwords you want to throw at it. I don't really care, to be honest with you. It's delicious, and it's a step in the right direction. I'm not the healthiest person when it comes to the things that I eat or drink.
Well, I want to start this episode off with a bang. I know last time we talked about maybe doing a creative writing session.
Yeah, which we can definitely get to today. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
So, I just kind of want to jump into it.
Oh, fuck. Let's just do it right now. We'll talk about some stupid shit later.
So, do you want to take an idea that I've already created, or should we just create something completely new and just kind of see how that all works?
Let's take one that you've already created so that it'll be a little bit easier to kind of digest it piece by piece, and then you can kind of explain the process through that.
Sure. So the first short story on my Patreon page is a story called Above the Ground.
Right, which I've read. It's great. I like it a lot.
Thank you. And it takes place, the story that's on there takes place right as a nuclear winter is about to happen. But the overarching story, the synopsis, is about a Earth that's about to end due to a nuclear winter. A scientist uses time, what's the word I'm looking for? A teleporter in time, time machine, to send a scientist back to the 1800s when he believed the road to destruction occurred because of the creation of roads. He said the moment that we started paving roads in the Earth is when we started to be desensitized to Earth and its needs. And that's what created this apocalyptic situation that they live in today.
Interesting.
And so the whole story revolves around this 22nd century guy going back to the 1800s with schematics for a rechargeable battery and flying cars, and that they would try to build society into the trees rather than on the ground. That's why it's called Above the Ground.
Yeah.
And let's kind of take that and, let me explain to you, how I even came up with that idea.
Okay.
So, about a year ago, I'm out snowboarding with my buddy Matt, and we're at Big Bear. Have you been to Big Bear?
No.
It's tight.
Yeah,
it's cool.
no,
Small mountain, but it's really great.
I need to go.
So, I had a great day of skiing, and we're on our way back, and to get back, we have to drive through the mountains. And when we were driving through the mountains, sitting in crazy traffic, it's a single lane circuit. Have you ever skied before?
I've tried snowboarding once, and I fell on my head and blacked out and got a concussion.
Amazing.
So, needless to say, winter sports
are not your thing.
Not necessarily
my
my
thing. Well, you can shred a guitar, so who cares?
I would try. I could play guitar in the snow on a mountain, so fuck all the rest of you.
But the most mountains, you have to drive through the mountain.
Right.
To get to the
I grew up going
area.
to the mountains. I love going to the mountains. I just physically.
So we're sitting in traffic in this mountain ridge, waiting to get through it, and instantly, I just had an idea. I was like, "What are we doing to Earth if Earth was a person by driving through this mountain?" And that idea, whenever I have ideas like this or thoughts, right, I always write them down immediately. I just took a bunch of notes, and when I got home that night, I just kind of said, what could be a sci-fi sort of angle of this? Right. How do you take the idea that the fact that I'm driving through this mountain and manifest that into a story? So I was like, what if Earth itself was alive? What would it think about me driving on it? And you take all of these pieces and you just continually pile them together until a story comes to mind. So in this case, I got to the point where I was like, well, what if the nuclear explosion, even though it was man executed, was a manifestation of Earth's distaste for human life?
Okay.
And how do you work with Earth rather than against it? And I got a lot of Avatar Na'vi vibes where like
Sure.
they're one with the planet.
Yeah.
And it got me to this idea that what if we, at the brink of the Industrial Revolution, built our society with the Earth as a thought rather than as a consequence?
Okay.
And that's where we got to the story.
Interesting. That's a really cool process. I mean, this all obviously happens mentally over the course of what I'm assuming is a few minutes. You know,
Yes.
whenever you're driving through it, you just get all this just kind of floods to you. And then you kind of have to like, you know, like you said, take notes and then probably go back and work to get it all back out later.
Totally.
You know,
And
so
then you
that's
just
probably
create
where the
names
process
and
comes.
it's all
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So what would you say is something that people probably don't know about taking an idea or a concept and actually applying it to something like a story in terms of being able to have a cohesive narrative for people to follow, being able to have a plot that's easy to understand, at least in a general description of it, and then coming up with characters to fit into this to be able to help tell that story through their experiences. I mean, what's that like going from this idea and this thought that you have on the mountain, and then you're back home and you're writing, and now you have to kind of bridge that gap between your imagination and making it fit into this, into a few paragraphs to where people can feel what you thought.
That's a really good question. The number one thing is the bridge, right? So you got to create the bridge. And what I mean by that is there is two sides that need to get bridged together. One side is the craziness of my mind and the creativity and where things come from and how far away they can get from anything reality. And the other side of that bridge is the everyday person who might like sci-fi but not love it to my level, or might love it to my level and beyond, but how do I get everybody to talk on the same level?
Okay.
And the number one way to do that is relatability. So you have to take your crazy idea that I thought about on the mountain and find what is the nucleus of relatability that story will have. And that is kind of the core that everything revolves around. Okay. That's what you go back to on every story arc, every plot point. Mm-hmm. Is it hitting that relatability? So obviously this story's underlying conversation is global warming.
Okay.
Right? So that is so even if you don't agree that global warming's happening, or you do agree it's happening, depending on your own views, which are irrelevant to me,
right?
It is a relatable subject that is current in news today.
Sure.
So when I'm talking about a nuclear winter destroying Earth, and that was caused because we did not take care of the planet, so we're going back in time to build our society with the planet instead of on the planet, that has to do with climate change, everything like that. So my whole story, as sci-fi, as crazy, as time machines and all these things come out, the core of the story, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, everybody knows the underlying message, so it makes it easier to digest.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like it's a target that you can just easily point at and be like, this, now that you know what this is, let's get in all these other details. I can kind of frame this in a fun way for everyone to go through.
Right. The reason people like horror movies is because some people like pain.
Right.
Right? That's what it comes down to, right? The reason that people like action movies is because some people enjoy the idea of being something that they're not.
Right.
And they want to see what that could be.
Right.
Right? And that correlates a lot in music also, right?
For sure.
Being an icon, being a symbol for somebody to look at. But when you're writing a story or telling a story, however you might talk about it, there always needs to be something that grounds it. And if there's nothing that grounds it, then it's going to miss.
Yeah.
Right? Even Star Wars, right, which is complete fantasy. We're not even talking science fiction. We're talking fantasy.
Sure.
There are things that happen in Star Wars that, by the principles of physics and our reality cannot happen.
Right.
You cannot have a lightsaber. As much as you would love to have one,
Right.
you cannot contain light without something on the back end containing it.
Right.
Now, with that being said, the story of Star Wars is just about growth,
Right.
right? All of this fantasy and all of the cool gizmos and the amazing R2-D2 and C-3PO and all of this awesome stuff, it comes back to the story of a father, son, and an evil turning good.
Yeah.
And everyone can relate to that.
100%.
And that's what storytelling is about. Is you need to have that nucleus, that point that you always go back to, that is what all of the layers that you add onto, when you peel them off, that's what you're really talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what Gene Roddenberry did so well in Star Trek.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? So like I always talk about that even off air with you. The reason Star Trek became such a cult classic and phenomenon is because he was like, I'm going to tackle racism by showing two aliens from different planets not liking each other because of the way they look.
Right.
Right? That is brilliance, because everybody wants to discuss the hard topic without discussing the hard topic.
Right. And I think that that's one of the things that makes art so amazing. It's kind of like, whether it's movies or writing or music, it's kind of a non-threatening way to talk about something otherwise extremely sensitive, without having to actually have a conversation about it. But you're putting a spotlight on it, and you're forcing people to, at the very least, acknowledge its existence.
Exactly.
So I think that's really cool to definitely think about from that perspective. Like, I love being able to kind of dissect all these different mediums of being able to tell stories. I've always liked that. And so whether that's, creative writing or watching TV shows, movies definitely are my favorite. Graphic novels are a close second. They should be first, because so many of the movies I watch are based off of graphic novels. But I'm such a visual person, which is why if I'm not going to watch a movie, I'm going to read a graphic novel. I love it. But even in music, so do you ever have like any distractions whenever you're trying to write? I mean, for me, whenever I'm writing music or having to do anything creatively, sometimes I get really easily distracted by all the sounds of these instruments that I get to work with, and especially in a digital platform, I have a lot of digital synthesizers, via various plugins, and I can load up kind of any synth sound I want, any instrument sound I want, and you kind of manipulate it, tweak it. And so like sometimes I go off on tangents and I go down that rabbit hole of like fucking with sounds, and sometimes that'll distract from my overall goal of wanting to write something, to tell a story. Are there anything, or is there anything, that could be similar to that? I mean, obviously you don't have like all these, plugins in a writing world that could distract you, but are there distractions that present themselves when you're trying to get ideas out?
I mean, I typically write on my iPad with a Bluetooth typewriter.
So porn is a huge one right off the bat.
the internet as a whole and texting and all that stuff definitely can be a distraction. Sure. I would say that I don't tangent that much when I write.
That's good.
But sometimes I just can't write.
Yeah, I get that.
I don't know how that is on the music side, but I need to have kind of a little inspiration
for sure
to be able to get it done. But once I do, it flows pretty easily. Obviously, I'd say the biggest distraction inherently is the fact that I'm not writing 24/7, 365. So sometimes I get pulled into something for Hero, one of the artists, things like that,
right,
where I can't necessarily just turn off the world. I don't have that luxury.
Your job.
Right. But I would love to. I do, as dark and as sad as this is going to sound, the best part about writing is that my characters don't disappoint me.
That's good.
but humans do
100%.
all the time.
Almost all humans disappoint me. It's not even a joke at this point.
So I will say that I do get sometimes post writing like the blues. If I go into like a 3, 4, 5 hour writing session and I come out of it and realize that the incredible characters and their stories, not saying that I wrote incredible characters, but just like the characters themselves are incredible and the things that they do are so exciting, and then I come back and reality slaps me in the face as to what I'm waiting for this artist or that artist or for Hero in general, it definitely makes you a little depressed.
Yeah.
So sometimes I would say that I don't give myself to that. I will stop writing a little bit before I know I'm about to go into like a full on writing session, because I don't have the luxury of not being able to be focused for the other things
Yeah, I get that.
that I'm doing at the after the point of that session ending.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's not easy, man.
No, it's
Tough. That's really cool, though. I guarantee you we're probably going to talk a lot more about this process and kind of like how we both create art. That was a fun little insight into kind of how you generate a story and just kind of how that happens.
I mean, another one, I have a story for, which we won't get into the details, but I have another story for the journey of a diplomat throughout his career.
Yeah, you brought that up
And
a few episodes ago.
And that story, I literally came up with the idea because I saw the diplomat sign at an airport.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Totally. I also have short-term memory loss.
Super excited. I just I don't think you have short-term memory loss. I think that you just try and cram so many things in that there's only so much space. It's just there's a line, and whatever's at the end of that line just gets kicked out inevitably to make room for this new thing. And that might actually literally be the definition of short-term memory loss. I have no fucking idea. But that's really fun. So, yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that story. It's going to be coming out probably not anytime soon because you're still developing it. But
Which one are we talking about?
Diplomat.
Yeah, not anytime
But
soon.
definitely
Above the Ground will...
Above the Ground.
The second part of the first chapter comes out in February.
yeah, if you haven't checked it out yet, definitely head on over to
And there's another one coming out the end of this month called The Adventures of Adrian James.
yeah. That was
Yeah,
you haven't released it.
I've given you the preview of that one.
Yeah, you haven't released it yet.
No.
That one's super fun. Be on the lookout for that. Head over to the to Patreon page. It's just Matthew Medney. For $5 a month, you can get access to all these short stories as he releases them. You can read them, dissect them, comment back with thoughts, ideas, critiques, kind of whatever you want. How's life been? What have you been up to? Like, how's your day?
I move this Friday.
You moved this Friday.
Yeah, to the marina.
Marina Del
I'm not
Rey?
going to tell anyone where I'm living.
Like your actual
Yeah,
spot?
absolutely not. That as much as I'd like to think I have stalkers, I will manifest one if I say the address on here.
That makes sense.
Well,
I
but
mean-
I will say that we will have access to a kayak, which sounds amazing to spend some time on the water.
If and when that stalker does come through, you can use that as your method of escape.
That'd be pretty cool video.
That'd be dope. So Marina Del Rey?
Yeah, just from Venice.
Yeah. So
Not too far.
Not too far from where you currently live.
Yeah, you will be coming over multiple times because you are the woodsman. A lot of people may or may not know this, but Kyle and I own another company called Hero Designs. It's herodesigns.org, and it's a woodworking company. And I do the business and be able to say cool things like I own a furniture company, but the reality is that Kyle does all of the work because I would cut my hand off and my dick off using a saw.
Yeah. It's almost happened. I've seen it. So I keep telling you to not put your dick that close to the blade. It's all that distracting iPad porn you're watching in between writing. It's just people fucking saws and machines and stuff. And just like, what's that
I'm
like?
on social media too much. It's just I'm getting too curious.
That's pretty great. So, yeah, so you're gearing up for a move. Man, I fucking hate moving. Like, so much. Thank God I love the house we're in right now, because if I had to move again, like, it doesn't matter. I mean, if you move, for a while, I moved once, like every 2 years or something like that, which doesn't sound like a lot. But then whenever it comes around to you actually having to put your shit back in boxes and get a new spot and head out, it's just really exhausting. I can't stand it. What else? It's still raining in Los Angeles. Fuck that. I'm super over it. People always say, like, we need it. Like, we need the rain. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But, like, enough is enough. You know? Tired of my fucking patio having, like, puddles in it. My dogs won't go to the bathroom in the rain. They're super...
Do they pee in the house?
Stuck up. Topanga does, for sure.
Oh, that sucks.
Topanga poops in the house a lot whenever it's bad weather because she's really bitchy and, like, won't... She just, like, thinks that she's above having to go to the bathroom outside. For those of you who don't know, my wife and I have 2 dogs. Their names are Corey and Topanga. And if you don't know what that's from, you can just stop listening now. I don't want your attention anyway. Just kidding. Go look it up. Find out. Enjoy that whole world. This is funny. I'm on Reddit. Just way too much. One of my favorite subreddits is called Today I Learned. And this one, I think I mentioned it to you a minute ago. It says apparently Kate Winslet keeps her Oscar in the bathroom so her Kate Winslet keeps her Oscar in the bathroom so her guests can hold it and make acceptance speeches in the mirror without feeling self-conscious. That makes me really happy. She's of course assuming that everyone that comes over would want to make a fake Oscar acceptance speech if given the opportunity to hold an Oscar.
That's pretty hubris.
That's really funny. Do you think that that's something that most people do? Like if you walked into someone's house, you think like the average person, let's take 100 people, just random people, and one by one walk them all into someone's house and then not even tell them what's in there, but then place an Oscar in plain sight. How many of them do you think would feel the urge to want to pick it up and make a fake acceptance speech? Like more than half? Less than half? I think at least half.
More than half.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, as conceited as that does sound of her evaluation of the human complex is pretty accurate.
For sure. Because, I mean, like, how many fake Oscar acceptance speeches do you think she made before she got to where she is in her career, you know?
Ooh, pretty decent amount.
I love Kate Winslet, though. She's super good. So, this is an article that I've been reading on for a little bit. Avengers In-Game's Time Travel Explained by Captain Marvel's New Power. It's a question, by the way. The article headline is Avengers In-Game's Time Travel Explained by Captain Marvel's New Power. So basically, you know, I read the first few paragraphs of the article and kind of skimmed the rest of it. But essentially what they're talking about is how Captain Marvel obviously has the ability to time travel, and that's kind of the plot of Endgame. Well, not the plot. We don't know the plot, really. They actually haven't... Marvel Studios president, Kevin Feige, actually... Feige.
Love Kevin.
I knew I was going to pronounce it wrong.
Kevin, I got your back.
They're only using footage from the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie for the trailers.
No way.
Anything that you see in a trailer for Endgame is going to be from the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, because apparently there's just so much in it. They can't risk giving anything away in the trailers. But they're basically saying one thing seems certain, though. Somehow Earth's surviving heroes will manage to thwart Thanos. Obviously, that's the assumption. Although Avengers Infinity War ended with the Mad Titan succeeding in his insane goal of erasing half of life in the universe with a snap of his fingers, the Avengers will ultimately triumph. All those who died will return. That's pretty clear, given Infinity War killed off characters known to be appearing in MCU sequels, such as Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and Black Panther. The snap will either be averted or undone, and Thanos will be defeated. I mean, that's their opinion. Obviously, they're correct in saying that, like, some characters have to come back because they're literally appearing in movies later this year. I mean, Spider-Man's coming
all
out.
the characters will come back, and then some might actually die.
Right, which, you know, Amanda will will be super happy if Black Panther comes back.
I mean, they already greenlit Black Panther 3.
Without this, what was Black Panther 2?
I'm sorry, Black Panther 2.
It just made me panic for a second. Like, did I miss an entire installment of Black Panther? So yeah, interesting thoughts. Thinking about time travel. The first trailer for Avengers Endgame confirmed that the Avengers have a desperate last-ditch plan to put matters right on a galactic scale. In one crucial scene, Steve Rogers and Black Widow talked about the mysterious plan, quote-unquote, "This is going to work, Steve," Black Widow insisted. So apparently Captain America's still shaken up, upset about the death of Bucky and Falcon.
They're going to come back. Bucky will become Captain America. Just like in the comics.
You think he's going to be the Nomad? Captain America in the movies, though? I mean, I know he's not in the comics.
That's a good point.
I mean, Steve Rogers turns into the Nomad in the comics. I mean,
well,
in Infinity, in the comics, he actually goes to fucking jail.
Well, no, in the comics, he didn't get ripped in half.
Well, it depends on which one we're talking about. In the Infinity storyline, he basically feels guilty that a lot of heroes have died in the fight against Tony Stark's viewpoint of how superheroes need to be kind of regulated, and he feels guilty about that and basically comes forward and surrenders himself, and that's kind of how that wraps up. But it depends. I mean, there's a couple different ones. I mean, Infinity is different from Infinity Gauntlet,
Totally.
which is different from other Avengers stories, and so it's like kind of depends on what one you're talking about. But yeah, so a lot of speculation about Captain Marvel. I mean, early on, a lot of people were talking about how Ant-Man's going to play kind of a crucial role in this too, because, because
the quantum realm.
Yeah, he was in the quantum realm whenever the snap occurred, which is why he didn't get taken. But who knows? I guess we're just going to have to find out.
Yeah, I think the interesting part about it is that I want to talk about a different part of the whole situation.
Yeah.
Marvel has created this environment where we even care to talk about this 5 months before the movie comes out.
Totally.
Whereas DC never has achieved that.
No.
Right? I don't think when we knew Aquaman was coming out,
we were oh, cool.
And
Aquaman.
we were like, oh, maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. But we never got into talking about what will the plot be.
Right. We didn't dissect it.
We didn't dissect it. We weren't necessarily not talking about it. We definitely were like, ooh, Jason Momoa, Game of Thrones. I'm down to see him as Aquaman.
Well, and I like Jason Momoa a lot. I think he's a great actor.
He's a perfect human.
100%. Have you
He's
seen
beautiful.
the photo?
He's so beautiful.
Have you seen this photo floated around?
Dude, I heard this thing from Joe Rogan. If you ever listen to my podcast, fuck yeah. But you'd said something today, and I want to give you full credit for it. I just thought it was fucking hilarious. I listened to Joe's podcast today, and he was talking about Jason Momoa and Aquaman. He was like, the amount of girls that have seen Aquaman is so disproportional to the amount of girls that have seen any other comic book movie.
100%. 100%. Dude, have you seen this photo of Jason Momoa leaving someplace, and he's got 2 security guards with him, and he's just towering over his security guards?
Oh, really?
Like, yeah. Like, his security guards, honestly, probably are, like, pretty big dudes in good shape, probably at least, 6 feet, something like that. And Jason Momoa just dwarfs them. And then someone put that up and was like, what even is the point of Jason Momoa's security guards? Right?
This is what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, 100%. That photo. So Google Jason Momoa security guard photo and just look it up. It's hilarious because he is so much bigger than this detail. It's ridiculous. If he went rogue and decided to just... So, obviously, they're there for his protection. But what if he just flipped his shit and decided to start attacking someone? I don't think they would be able to defend someone against him. Like...
Right. Right?
'Cause,
No,
I
no,
mean, at the end of the day-
if he saw red, that person's dead.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, like, I think a lot of people were just like, oh, well, yeah, but, like, he's an actor. And I'm like, yeah, he's an actor. I'll give you that. But he still is that fucking big of a dude. He still goes through all that training.
No, he's
he
a
still
monster.
works. He's a monster human being. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like, if you think that Jason Momoa couldn't kick almost anyone's ass at the drop
Minus
of a
any
hat,
sort of fighter, yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And maybe he is a good fighter. I don't know. If
Who
you
knows?
are, I'm sorry. But let's take UFC and not boxers are pussies. Sorry, they are. Let's take let's take UFC fighters out of the equation. Momoa will kick your ass.
He's just a monster, man. He's just a giant. Like, he's just a giant. So look up that photo. It's hilarious. I think I saw it on Reddit like a while back, but it's pretty good. What else is going on?
What else is going on in the? Well, we were talking before we tangented there. We were talking about how Marvel has created this culture that we care about the storylines.
Yeah,
And-
you kind of like
And do you want to know why that is?
super invested in the story.
Well, do you want to know why my theory for why that is?
Right.
Is because movies typically have in the past not had great abilities to cliffhanger the story and keep people caring enough for the next one. So let's take both sides of that real quick. Let's say there's a movie that's an amazing cliffhanger. It might be 2 years before that cliffhanger gets talked about again.
Right.
So it's just too much time in between. And then the other side of that, movies just have shitty cliffhangers, right? But what Marvel's been able to do is their post-credit scenes set up the cliffhanger for the next movie that comes out that year. Because Marvel does 3 movies a year.
Exactly.
So their cliffhangers are relevant enough, similarly to how Lost cliffhangered every episode.
Right.
So you were just hyper in it for 6 days until the next episode came out.
For sure.
And what Marvel's been able to do that DC doesn't, because they just don't have the production schedule that Marvel does, is that the Ant-Man, the reason that we're talking, and this brings it full circle, the reason that we're talking about Ant-Man having a key role in the quantum realm is because at the end of Ant-Man 2, which was the last Marvel movie, his compatriots,
I think it's an acceptable way to say that word.
got dusted by Thanos while he was stuck in the quantum realm.
Right.
And then the first preview for Infinity War came out and boom, he's out of the quantum realm. So people are...
You're like, oh shit, what happened?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those two things happened within 6 months of each other, creating the situation where people now want to think about the plot.
Well, I think that, like, I completely agree with that. And I 100% think that that's the right way to do it. Because clearly, like, Marvel has chosen that route and it's extremely successful and profitable for them. I think one thing that you said that I definitely want to touch on is the fact that, like, Marvel puts out 3 movies a year. Like, I think that's the thing, you know, it's not just like it's one movie and then they put out a cliffhanger and it's just that good that we're going to wait until the next one. They're able to supplement this story from so many different angles through all these different characters in each of their own movies. They literally are building this world around one central theme and they're telling you all the different sides and angles of it. And, like, that's super fun for people to get to do. DC's really, they were, like, really behind the curve and they're just trying to play catch up now. And it's just not working that well. Like,
Well, I think the reason it's not working is because they're doing like the cardinal sin, and that cardinal sin is. Are you okay there?
I'm gonna probably make it. I'm fine.
You're not gonna die on me? I can't do this podcast without you. I'm really boring on my own.
You could Weekend at Bernie's it and just, like, if I die, you know. But how would that work in an audio format? No one would know that you, like, put sunglasses on me and sat me in a lawn chair. They would just fucking be like, oh shit, this got 50% less interesting. Anyway,
the reason that DC isn't working is the same reason why a musical artist doesn't work that tries to emulate a star. Even though DC shouldn't be looked at as an aspiring artist,
right, they're established.
let's
for sure.
look at them like that for the sake of what I'm about to say. They are ex-artist working out of their home studio trying to be the next Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake is Marvel.
Yeah, for sure.
And that artist that's trying to be Justin Timberlake is doing exactly the same thing that Justin did.
Right.
Instead of using what Justin did as inspiration to do his own thing.
Well, they're also skipping steps.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
They're skipping steps. They're not paving their own path. They're just trying to catch up, which I honestly find so peculiar because in my mind, and you tell me what you think, Kyle, it is such a massive opportunity for DC. Someone in a boardroom should have been like, this is fucking great. Marvel is peaking their Avengers story right now.
Yeah.
Let's let them have their moment. Let's put out a Cyborg movie. Let's put out a Batman movie. Let's put out a Superman movie. Let's put out a Flash movie. And then once the Avengers are going on a lull, which everyone knows it will after Endgame, the next Avengers iteration will be big, but nothing will be as big as Endgame for a long time.
For sure. It's definitely what they've been building towards for
10 years.
A decade. Like, yeah.
So, not saying that the next movies aren't going to be great, but this is literally the only time in the last 10 years that nobody, DC or Marvel fan, gives a fuck about anything besides Endgame. So, why isn't DC coming in and being like, you got this, we're going to hold off on a Justice League movie. We're going to show you these 5 individual movies. So when you're rebuilding the next iteration of the Avengers via Eternals or whatever, we're going to have all of these baseline stories flushed out, and then we're going to take the mantle and put out our first Justice League movie. That's what I always thought they were going to do.
And actually do a good version of it, too. And not
use some B.
Not have to fucking CGI Henry Cavill in it. Like,
oh my God. And also, will they use a B-level villain? Who the fuck cares about Steppenwolf?
Well, first of all, Steppenwolf is not threatening, even kind of. The CGI wasn't that great because they didn't use like motion capture. Like, they didn't have an actor actually come in and act Steppenwolf out like Josh Brolin did with Thanos. I mean, Thanos is CGI, but Josh Brolin fucking acted those lines out. That's actually him doing that. I mean, he walked through set with everybody. He did that, you know. No one did that with Steppenwolf. They just drew him in, which is a really, really lame way of describing like otherwise an amazing digital artist.
Three movies with Lex Luthor and the Joker in the DCU. Yeah. And you don't go with Lex Luthor and the Joker. What?
It doesn't make sense to me. Well, I think they were trying to just like come up with something bigger.
No, they were trying to
more epic, and
no,
like
they were going for Thanos.
Well, yeah, because they were like, well, who's a huge villain in like the DC world? It's like Steppenwolf, and I'm like, yeah, maybe, but like he still didn't carry the clout in DC.
Well, but who's the big
Thanos did?
Wait, who's
Marvel.
the big one in DC? Like that's like Galactus level. There's like Annihilus is Marvel. Hold on.
Yeah, all the people that you were thinking of the reference are like all Marvel
on DC. I'm googling this shit.
I just think that overall DC
Darkseid.
Yeah.
Darkseid is Thanos.
For sure.
And they should have teased a dark if they wanted to follow in the footsteps of Marvel, all they needed to do was do a Lex Luthor storyline that summoned Darkseid.
Yeah. It's just
like make Lex into Loki and summon Darkseid for the next movie.
Yeah, they didn't do that.
Oh, you want to know what's really funny, though? You want to know what Wikipedia says about Darkseid?
Huh.
Darkseid is often the primary villain of the Justice League. Thanos is basically a better written Darkseid.
Yeah. I mean, they fleshed his story out a lot more. I mean, like, you actually empathize with Thanos whenever you're even reading through in the graphic novels, whenever you read through this story and you get to know him as a character and get to know like who the Cull Obsidian are, which by the way, fucking incredible. And I'm a little disappointed in Infinity War that the Cull Obsidian, which is otherwise known as the Black Order, which is basically Thanos' warlords.
Well, Cull Obsidian is actually one of the characters in the Black Order. They just called them the Cull Obsidian in the movie.
Yes, yeah. But the Black Order in the comics is incredible. So cool. Anyway, Proxima Midnight and Corvus Glaive are actually married. And
Right.
yeah, they didn't really, you don't really know that in the movie, which, I mean, to be fair, I mean, for them to try and work something like that in, I don't know if it would have been relevant enough, but
I would have liked to see more. Like, they put a lot of great backstory into the Jatari just by the flashback themes of Thanos,
yeah.
but I would have loved to see 5 to 10% more backstory of Cole Obsidian.
For sure. They're fucking ruthless. I mean, if you read Infinity, 97th of all, if you remember at the end of Infinity War, all the dogs that Proxima calls out whenever they're in
Yes.
Wakanda. So those are actually super badass in the comics. They're called Outriders. And they actually have like more, like a lot bigger of a role than they did in the movies. They're not just like mindless foot soldier alien dogs. They actually can they track people, and one of the Outriders was actually crucial in working with Ebony Maw in basically incepting Doctor Strange into turning on the Avengers. And so that's kind of something that was really cool that I felt like happened in the graphic novel that didn't really happen at all in the movie. But
I think the problem was it wasn't. I mean, it's not necessarily even a problem, but the reason that those story arcs didn't even get shown is because the movie wasn't. It was not an Avengers movie.
No, it's
so
a movie
it was
about
not
Thanos.
Right,
Yeah.
it was a Thanos movie. So anything that was not directly Thanos related was kind of brushed over.
Yeah.
Right. Those story arcs matter more if those characters' fights against the Avengers mattered.
right, they didn't really. Yeah, they were just basically a supplement to Thanos. Overall, though, still super happy with what's going on in the MCU. I'm not against DC. I just feel like they've created this tradition of letting people down with their movies, and I just don't understand. Excuse me, like what the thought processes are behind it. I mean, like if they're trying to play catch up with Marvel, it's not going to work. I mean, it's just not going to. I mean, like you're trying to like Michael Jordan has already, you're in the fourth quarter. Michael Jordan's already scored 75 points, and you're going to try and like come in with some layups and catch your team up. It's just not going to fucking happen.
It's the bottom of the ninth, and you're down by 5.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So,
I mean, it's an unfortunate situation that they can't get the DC thing going.
and it sucks because if they were just patient, everyone would win because no one wants a bad DC movie. Even if you're more of a Marvel fan, you still enjoy getting to go see the DC side of things. They're fun characters. I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I like Ben Affleck as Batman, contrary to a lot of
He is an
opinions.
amazing Bruce Wayne.
I like, well, he's the brawler Batman, he's the later in life. I've been emotionally broken down by all of this, and so I don't give a fuck, and so I'm just going to be more violent and dark.
He's the
you
one
know.
that might actually end up crossing the line.
For sure. And you believe that because Ben Affleck in real life is also kind of depressing. And so this is just what we're left with on screen. I talked to one of my good friends about this a lot. And I will say, we're going to talk about Batman for just a minute. I love Batman, but let's talk about the Christopher Nolan Batmans versus the Zack Snyder Batmans. I think you laugh because that laugh, I know just proved the point that I'm about to make, which is I feel like the vast majority of people will say that the Christopher Nolan Batmans were head and shoulders better than the Zack Snyder Batmans in terms of storytelling, narrative, character development, even shooting the fucking movie. I feel like a lot of people would agree the Christopher Nolan ones were better, but I'm going to issue an argument from the other side of the coin here, and it might not be a popular opinion, but so Christopher Nolan, first of all, is extremely intellectual, and in all of his movies, he has to explain things. Even in Interstellar, you watch something like that on a cosmic level, it's explained through science. He has to find some type of practical or tangible way to explain what's happening. He can't ever really leave anything out there to the universe of just saying like, hey, maybe this person is just a superhero. You know what I mean? So you watch through the Christopher Nolan Batmans, Batmans, and Christian Bale's Batman is the logical one. You know, he's the thinker, he's the intellect. You get to see a little bit of the playboy side of him, but I mean, to be fair, you don't really see any of the playboy side of Ben Affleck and his Batmans.
No, the best part about the Bruce Wayne, Christian Bale is in The Dark Knight, where he goes, "Yeah, there's like a 4-week waiting list to get to this restaurant, so I bought the place."
Yeah, for sure. They're talking because he's going to meet his childhood friend, love interest Rachel,
Right.
and Harvey Dent, and he walks in with this Russian supermodel, or this Russian, she's from the ballet. He walks in and he was like, "Hey, guys, let's just have dinner together. Let's push some tables together." And Harvey Dent's like, "I don't think they're going to let you do that." And he goes, "I don't think it'll be a problem. I own the place." It's just like, just that kind of
That's some
badass.
gangster
It's just
shit.
like, man, that's fucking rad. So anyway, the point that I'm going to try and make quickly is that basically you have Christopher Nolan, who's the intellect, and he basically makes a superhero movie, and he explains everything through practical science and physics. Whereas, and you don't ever really get a good superhero shot of Batman. Like, think about it. Think through the movies. You look at all of these amazing
In the Christian
things.
Bale ones.
Yeah, in the Christian Bale ones. You look through all these amazing moments in the movies. You don't get that one. I mean, people could argue like, well, what is it, like superhero shot or whatever? It's like, I'm about to explain it to you, because like one thing that Zack Snyder does incredibly well is tell stories visually. And so whether the narrative structure and character development of those movies wasn't necessarily up to par to the, Christopher Nolan versions, literally within 5 minutes of Batman versus Superman, you see Superman ascending from the night sky down, and you see his cape, and you're like, holy fucking shit, this is one of the coolest shots I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, look at 300, for crying out loud. That entire movie is just the coolest
Is
shot
the
thing
original
ever.
one Zack Snyder?
Yeah, Zack Snyder did 300. Zack Snyder did Batman vs. Superman. And so basically,
I think the problem, not to cut you off
Right.
too much, is 300 comes from a story that he just embellished, like
Sure.
a real life story.
sure.
And his job was less about writing a story and more about telling a story that everybody kind of knows
Right.
and making it look tight.
Which he did.
And he killed it.
300 looks
Fun
incredible.
fact, the first 300 movie is the first movie I ever saw high.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a good one. You must have really fucked up whenever the humpback messenger went to Xerxes and like walked
I was
into
so
his.
pissed. I was so angry. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're ruining my boy's day.
That's amazing. No, ultimately the point I was
But
trying to
Batman
make
is
is
way
is
more
like,
complex. That's why
Batman's
it doesn't.
super complex.
That's
I
why it
completely
doesn't-
agree.
It doesn't work. It's like in Batman, you almost rather give up the action for
Right.
the intellect.
Right, and I totally get that, which Christopher Nolan, I feel like, did a good balance of, because you still have a shitload of great action in those movies. Well, they're almost 3 hours long, first of all. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Ultimately, my point is that, like, overall, I think Christopher Nolan's a better storyteller, but Zack Snyder visually, I feel like, knows how to capture a superhero, because Ben Affleck, when he's Batman, fucking looks like Batman. Like, Henry Cavill, and like in Batman vs. Superman, like, one of the most badass scenes I've seen in any superhero movie is whenever Superman is ascending from the sky and it's raining and it's dark outside, and Batman's in like the bat suit and he's in the Batmobile, and Superman comes down and just rips the fucking top off of it and pulls him out of it. Like, that's one of those badass scenes I've ever seen in a superhero movie ever. Like, because you feel the weight of what these heroes can actually do in their own world, because you're looking at them, you're like, holy shit, they're for real. I didn't really feel that in the Christopher Nolan Batmans, even though they were far better movies.
But could you argue that's because those movies didn't have any supernatural villains built into them?
That's what I'm saying. I think Christopher Nolan's too pragmatic to give an aspect of his storytelling up to your imagination.
Oh, for sure. No, he wrote a crime drama and masked it with a superhero.
That's exactly what he did. He wrote an incredible crime drama, which, again,
it holds up.
super fucking good.
But
Yeah.
the Joker though. I mean, here's the thing. It really, obviously, our entertainment should not be the reason or not reason that someone lives.
Right.
And we shouldn't care about that when someone does die. But a part of me always just feels a little bit upset or still curious, because we all know that Heath Ledger had a bigger role to play
Yeah, he
in
did.
The Dark Knight
Rises.
And
Right.
when he passed, they had to quickly rewrite it to have Bane, and Tom Hardy crushed Bane. Crushed.
Did a
But
super good job.
but we don't know what story, what maybe supernatural villains, what things the Joker was gonna wreak mayhem for in that second installment.
I mean, and that character was maniacal. I mean, I am a little disappointed that even before they had to do the rewrite for The Dark Knight Rises, at the end of The Dark Knight, Harvey Dent dies. I mean, like, Two-Face is just done.
Yeah, that's bad
Kind
writing.
of made me a little bummed out to have to deal with the fact that they just kind of, in
Glossed
like maybe
over.
30, 40 minutes, glossed over Two-Face.
Yeah.
It's like one of the most complex villains in the Batman universe, and it's just kind of like, okay, I guess I'll just have to stick to Tommy Lee Jones then.
And I have a good friend that worked on those movies, and he told me that there were scenes that they had to reshoot because people, Christian Bale, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Aaron Eckhart, would just forget their lines because they were so freaked out by Heath Ledger saying his.
That's incredible.
So, like, he was like, it was like, I read some things, and obviously people really like to embellish stories to make people feel larger than life.
Sure.
But I've heard that Heath Ledger was very much a method actor.
Right.
And I heard that before he took on the role, he forced himself to lock himself in a motel room for 9 months with no communication to anyone except
Right.
his notebook. And Christopher Nolan came in once or twice a week and just had food delivered under the door.
Yeah.
And that's how he got into character. That's scary.
That's insane. I mean, ultimately, that's had a lot to do with the deterioration of his mental health overall, that and drugs. But, it's super sad. I'm still sad about Heath Ledger's passing, but that was an unbelievable performance. I mean, like, his death aside, that's one of the most incredible portrayals of any villain I've ever seen. I mean, it's because you feel the weight of, like, that villain.
100%.
Unlike fucking Steppenwolf. Fuck
I mean,
Steppenwolf.
they I mean, we can end on this. There is a lot to be said that Christopher Nolan killed the DC universe
Yeah,
because he made it so good. That's hard.
I mean, they're not going to remake those for
No.
sure. I mean, those will always stand independent of anything else that anyone
But
ever
like,
does with Batman.
I think the thing is that Christopher Nolan gave people the idea that maybe it could be different.
Yeah, which is what I really appreciated about it, because that's the first time we ever saw Batman framed in that way.
Totally.
So
Totally. I mean, yeah, I think that's all the time we got today.
we literally didn't do anything but just talk about fucking Marvel and DC.
I mean, I wish I could do that every day of my life.
It's fine. We do. But
What, the next time we're on air, you'll already been come back from Australia?
maybe it depends. I mean, we might be able to get some in, and whenever I get back from Logan, I got
Oh,
a couple.
true.
I have a couple of days, but it just
Ooh,
depends.
nice.
Yeah,
I'm
be
excited
out.
to know what movies you watch on that flight.
Yeah, me too. I'm definitely going to go in. I'm going to sync some things off Netflix. Which, by the way, if you haven't been doing anyone on any type of mobile device, download the Netflix app. You can, much like you can create offline playlists on Spotify, you can now sync offline content on Netflix if it is their original content, and they make it available to do so. So definitely check that out. It's awesome. Saves me whenever I'm traveling.
That's
Little
cool.
shout out. I knew that was coming for a while too. I have been waiting on it for forever, and it's amazing. So, yeah, I don't have any other closing thoughts other than I hope it stops raining in Los Angeles someday soon. Yeah, go check out the Patreon page. It's just patreon.com/Matthew Medney. Get access.
Matt Medney.
Matt Medney. Matthew Medney will get you there.
I'm hoping.
Well, and if you search on Patreon for Matthew Medney, it'll pull you up.
Does it?
Yeah.
I haven't checked.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So
I'm famous.
Yeah, definitely you're famous. If
In my own mind.
If people type in your name specifically to a search engine designed to find you, you're famous.
That's all I need in life.
No, so there's a bunch of different pledge levels, but obviously the basic one's $5 a month. You get a couple of short stories a month that Matt writes. You can listen to the podcast a few days early before it goes up on all other platforms, and we'll probably start including some other goodies too once we get some people to start supporting on a bigger level. So thanks. We will be back hopefully with more comic book talk, but not quite as much as this episode, because I definitely want to dive into some more music topics and some more writing topics, which we absolutely will. I think this was a perfect example of just tangenting.
Yeah, it was good though.
It was
fun.
great. It was super fun.
I think that's what happens when we don't have coffee and we just have kombucha.
That's true. That's true.
And we're going to start having some guests soon.
Evident. Yeah, we're going to have some fun people on.
My buddy Ben from Warner is going to come on. I think Ian from Hero is going to do an episode.
Yeah.
If you guys are listening and you have any thoughts, people, comment on the Patreon page and we'll try to find them and bring them in.
Yeah, I mean, Matt and I definitely know a lot of people, and through those people, we could probably, at the very least, get an email address and shoot out some ill-advised requests to have someone come to my Burbank studio and sit and talk shit about lots of different things with us. So, yeah, everyone have a great week. We'll talk to you next time.
Sounds good. Bye, guys. Love you.